Hi, folks. With today, Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of girl bosses and how they so very often bring about in spectacular fashion the demise of the business. Now, I want to separate a commercial business that sort of has to make a profit, has to compete, has to attract customers, and that sort of thing, and separate that from, say, a quango or a government department or a business or a company that relies completely on government contracts. There you can put girl bosses in there because you don't have to make good, effective, worthwhile business decisions. You just parasite off the taxpayer money as it comes in, and there's no actual criteria for success in any commercial sense anyway. But once you have a commercial business, it seems almost as it has to compete to win customers. It seems almost as night follows day that women are 99.9% likely to drive the business into the ground and do it fairly quickly. And that doesn't mean that every man who attempts it will be successful. Far from it. The success rate of any commercial business executive in a competitive market competition business, success rate isn't 100% for men. You're probably lucky to even get 50%, but the likelihood of a man succeeding at it is infinitesimally greater than a woman succeeding in a commercial competitive business. So we got drawn into this from so there's a business. I'll just give a quick backstory here. There's various NGO type businesses which are funded by government taxpayer money that effectively acquire businesses or install women into these businesses. Now, their mission is to put more women into management, put more women in as business owners. Why do they want to do that? Well, because there are more men as business owners than women. There must be something wrong here. It's got to be down to fascism and Hitler and da-da-da-da. So they're trying to redress, they're trying to engage in social engineering to redress the balance because women are being artificially held back by Hitler and so on. Therefore, these people are doing good work as they see it. And their perception is just totally ideological rather than practical. Why are more men in businesses? Why do more men own successful businesses? It's because they're prepared to make the decisions and do the hard work to make those businesses successful. But these ideological fanatics say, no, it's because of some sort of oppression of women, and that's the cause. So they're going to bypass this oppression. So they ideologically believe, do a bit of social engineering, and suddenly there'll be lots of women running successful businesses. And they use taxpayer money, and they've got, they themselves attract funds that they act effectively as a charity, really. So their sole mission is to just put women in charge. Now, there's not many women who are really capable or experienced doing it. So this is a business that this investment company, which is really just a feminist front for social engineering, this investment company acquired this business, then installed an all women management team. Now, they didn't go for schoolgirls. It was women between the age of, say, 45 and 55. So that age range, they're all white women. As far as I can tell, they're all straight, but straight white women in that sort of prime Karen age range, I guess you'd call it. So they had a business that was doing okay, and they acquired the business, and I think they paid a bit too much for it, but anyway, they and the women ended up squabbling. The business is on the verge of going under, and they all had a big falling out. They're all accusing each other of terrible things and so on. And we were called in to do a specific, if you like, a technical assessment of some of the technical aspects. And we knew one of the people who knew someone, so we were brought in to do this. But that meant we had to go through a shitload of documents. I mean, my desk was piled from desk height to sort of just almost to near the top of my head. There were so many papers to documents to review. So anyway, so we got to see all the toings and froings and the emails and text messages, all that sort of stuff. And now remember, these are grown women. These aren't school children. But the problem, the business wasn't going well because they were squabbling over how the business would be run. So you've got messages going back and forth where one of the women says, look, we're not really making enough money here, so we need to, like, that was a few shops they had, we need to open up on Sundays and we need to open up until later in the afternoon. But one of the women who's been a lifetime public servant says, no, I'm used to finishing work at 4 o'clock, and I'm not going to change that attitude now. So I'll change my views now. So because we have to be in unanimous agreement to how the business will be run, I say that no, we won't. We have to close at 4 o'clock. So then it came, well, should we open on the weekend, and should we open later on the week? So should we open later on Saturday, and should we also open on Sunday? No, some other woman, one of the other women says, no, I don't want to work Sunday. I've got a handicapped child and I want to spend all day Sunday with her. And because, they have to rotate the rosters around and, do that type of thing if they're going. So no, she doesn't want that because then she'll have to commit to more time. Then there are other discussions about responsibility. So here's 4 women, again, between the age of 45 and 55, but none of them have ever had to accept responsibility in their lives and accountability. And so the argument's going, well, no, if I accept that responsibility, then I have to accept accountability, and I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be accountable. Responsibility, I'm prepared to do it on a committee, but not an individual thing. Why should I take responsibility? Because if I take responsibility, then I'm accountable, and then that would cause other people to disrespect me if things go wrong. So that's sort of the loop or the sequence of logic that these women are applying, that if I'm not responsible for anything, then I can't be accountable, and then I can't be accused of anything, and thus no disrespect will occur. So this is, again, these women are acting like schoolgirls, and the investment company, interestingly, is keeping a full arm's length. Their job is done. That they've put women in charge. They can tick that box. We've advanced the cause of women. Women CEOs or women C-level executives now, and so they're going back and forth with this. And then another one will say, well, we have our meetings, our management meetings during working hours. Should we actually come in an hour earlier, have the meetings then? And so. And then there's also, oh, no, my husband said he's not feeling well, or my boyfriend says he's not feeling well, or whatever. So I'm not going to come in today, or I've got the beginnings of a headache, so I'm too I can't come along to a meeting because I may be asked questions for which I may later be accountable. So I'm not going to come. Then there'd be other meetings where women say, oh, you disrespected me at the last meeting, so I want to bring an emotional support person to the next meeting. This is the meeting of the executive team. They want to bring along emotional support people. Then another one will say, no, you have to have the meeting at my place because my dog is very important to me, and the dog gives me emotional support, and I want the dog to be there when we have the meeting to give me the emotional support. Now, if I was the CEO and I had women on the team behaving that way, they'd be fired almost instantly. Excuse me? I mean, what are you even talking about? Why can't you treat the business with some sort of... I mean, you lot aren't serious people. You're just a bunch of schoolgirl parasitic idiots that got shoehorned in. Now, the investment company people, who again are all a bunch of radical feminists, I mean, they knew 2 of the women. And so these women were selected on the basis of they just had connections to the feminist cabal. And then those women then selected 2 other women who they thought were, girl bosses. We don't have men telling us what to do. And this would be something that would pop around. They said, well, the benefit, even though we might be going broke, at least we don't have any man telling us what to do. I mean, for fuck's sake. So anyway, I'm looking at all these things going back and forth, and then they're trying to outdo each other with victim points. So you disrespected me at the last meeting, and I feel bad about that. So I'm stressed. I'm so stressed now about your disrespect that I can't attend any future or agree to anything until you apologize for your disrespect. What disrespect was this? Comes back the message, I shouldn't have to tell you. And very, very, very sort of girly, fragile, girly type behavior there. But they're doing it to each other. I mean, normally they might try that on a man, say like a dad or a brother or a husband or a boyfriend or something. I've had girlfriends who always tried that. What have I done? You know what you've done. I do. And so that type of thing. And it's widespread girly sort of behavior generally, but it's a huge responsibility avoidance mechanism. And they're doing it to each other though, which is interesting. So, and then there'd be a counter accusation. Oh, well, you disrespected me more than I disrespected you. So I'm the bigger victim here, not you. Oh yeah, well, I told Billie Jean about this, and she said that was totally outrageous disrespect. So it's more your fault than mine. And these little barbs go back and forth again. I remember schoolgirls talking like this. I remember at high school, this was how the girls did back and forth to each other. And so, and with teenage schoolgirls. So these are women like 50 years old. So, but they've never, what is the common fact here? They've never had to take responsibility in their lives. They've always been told that they're the victim, men are the problem, men are to blame for everything, and that as long as men aren't around telling you what to do, then everything's fine. But again, in the business now, the business is going downhill pretty quickly, but no one's prepared to accept responsibility. Not by the way that like one or the other or one come out with some sensible suggestion from time to time. They do. Like one of them says, well, we need to open for longer hours, but another one says no. Then someone else says we need to reorganize such and such aspect of the business, which is a reasonably sensible proposal. But another one will veto that because that means that she might have to accept responsibility. So anytime there's any proposal or suggestion or it comes up, they'll all evaluate, or the others will evaluate it, not on the basis of do we need this to make the business successful or to arrest the decline of the business. They don't look at it from that perspective. That's not even on their radar as a way of looking at it. They look at it from the point of view, will that mean I will have to take responsibility for something? That's the only prism through which they evaluate every suggestion or every necessity that the business produces. So they always come back with no. Someone will say, well, no, I don't want that, on the basis, again, that they are unprepared to accept responsibility. And if they accept the proposal, that means they must accept the responsibility or accountability that goes with it. So they're cancelling each other out. Even the ones that make the sensible suggestions, and that's rare enough, by the way, even them, they will only prepared to sort of go forward if it's the committee is unanimous. And they've got, again, one person disagrees and it's effectively a veto on the whole thing. They see that as a democratic process. And again, it's frequently mentioned, well, if there was a man here, he wouldn't agree to this committee thing. He'd just make decisions and tell us how it would be. Well, yeah, because that's someone who's prepared to accept the responsibility and take the accountability. And these women don't understand that. They just see that's a man telling us what to do. They don't perceive a responsibility, accountability fact. It's like they just can't see it, or it's so as they see it, it's so threatening to them that they'd rather die than accept responsibility. There's thing that one of the most traumatic things for some people is public speaking, and some people would rather die than have to make a public speech. And this seems to be the same, or that level of fear seems to be the same with women. You mentioned responsibility and accountability, and certainly women, all the years that I've had them reporting to me and all that sort of, they desperately dive for cover as soon as there's any thought of responsibility. And I've never quite understood it. Why are men, not all men, by the way, Why are men much more prepared to step up and take responsibility? Women are not. Women will only take responsibility providing there's a committee or there's plenty of other people to blame, whereas a man will personally take, I'll take the I personally will take this responsibility. Women just run, a million miles an hour, run away from that sort of thing. And this was evidenced throughout all these interactions. So the matter got so difficult that they took it to this sort of legal arbitration process, suggested by the feminist investment company, investment group. And again, it's very much a girly way of perceiving things here, that why don't we go to a process where no one's at fault and where everyone can sort of accept a little tiny bit of the responsibility equally shared out in a very sort of communist type way, and then maybe we can sort something out from there. But it was an attempt to sort something out, because it had got poisonous. Each of these women was accusing the other of, you're disrespecting me. Oh yeah, well, you're disrespecting me. It was that type of thing. And so the arbitration process came along. The documents from the arbitration officers are interesting, because the way they're structured in arbitration is to look for the person with the most social power and the person with the least social power, and then they decide along those lines. That's how you decide who is culpable and who's not, and then you give the responsibility to the person with the most social power. So it's a very ideological construct, and then you give the rewards or the benefits or the payouts or the kudos to the person with the least social power. That's how you decide it. Maximum social power loser, minimum social power winner, and that's how it's done. But here they're screwed, and you can see them struggling and wrestling with it, because these are all 50-year-old straight white women. There's no person with the most social power. They all have more or less equal social power, and so this fucks up the entire arbitration process, because they can't find somebody with the least social power to give the sort of the participation trophy star to. So the arbitration process sort of goes now, and really they all stick to their guns. It's her fault because she disrespected me. She and the way they talk, I was not prepared to engage with a person who was being so disrespectful to me, so I walked away. Or and this type of thing of how the meetings they'd had, and I don't have to take minutes at a meeting just because she said that I should, because of the way she disrespected me, and the pettiness is just off the charts. So anyway, this was the thing here, but nobody. I mean, we had a very, very brief sort of 2 or 3 minute interviews with the 2 of the 4 women, and I wouldn't hire any of them to clean the toilet. Not that they didn't have different capabilities. One I thought was quite good as a like a frontline marketer. That one was good. Another one had done some work as an accountant. So, but that seems to be very low level, and so it wasn't that they were all totally useless in everything, but as a to run a business, or to be to be responsible for it. So my sort of feeling is that the investment company has really lost every penny. They've churned up they've burned serious money on arbitration and silly pointless negotiations, but because these arbitration folks just can't make a decision, because again the social power is here, the whole thing is going to go down the. But the investment company's undeterred. Their mission isn't to make successful businesses. Their mission isn't to, locate capable women executives out there to run it. They're not. That's not their mission. Their mission is social engineering. Full stop. If every business they invest in fails, then as far as they're concerned, they've still accomplished things, because they installed, women-only executive management teams. That's what they've accomplished, and they see that as an accomplishment in itself. But looking through the whole thing, I'm aghast. None of these women should have been put in those roles, and within a month or two, it was obvious they weren't up to it, and they should have been fired. but it's taxpayer money that's being thrown around. Nobody really cares if it's all wasted. To them, it's just an ideological mission. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.